You can have anything you want, but you can't have everything you want. Choose your regret. What's that? What's the choose? Well, if you accept the fact that regrets are inevitable.
There's one point you said about motherhood, and that kind of opened a doorway in my mind about the broader subject of regret in life. And, you know, where if you look at sort of a meta-analysis of where people at different ages and different genders are experiencing the highest levels of regret, where does that fall? But
no, regret is something that I've been thinking about an awful lot. And it makes for considering regret, considering the things that we regret in life and trying to reframe it has been one of the most useful mental models that I've gained. So Douglas Murray, British writer, columnist, spectator, multiple New York Times bestseller. I was in Manhattan with him, and he was telling me a story about Christopher Hitchens, the famous atheist, new atheist guy, one of the four horsemen of the atheist apocalypse. And Douglas, earlier in his career, was lamenting to Hitch about the fact that he had to choose a thing, and by choosing a thing, he couldn't do a different thing. So he had this opportunity cost. And he's saying, all of these problems, I don't know whether I want to do this thing, I want to do that thing. And you can imagine they're probably in some British pub somewhere in Westminster or whatever, and Hitch is probably smoking. He goes, Douglas, in life, we must choose our regrets. And he told me the story, and I thought, that's really interesting. What does he mean, choose our regrets? And I reflected on it so much, and it made me think, well, what I'd always presumed was that in life, the only reason that I had a regret is because I made a suboptimal decision. If only I'd been able to make the perfect decision, I could have ameliorated the regret, and the reason that it's there is because I didn't make the right decision. But when you accept the fact that opportunity cost is baked into the fabric of life, me and you can go to the gym or we can go to the theme park. By going to the gym, we don't go to the theme park. Even if the gym was the right decision to make, we're always going to have the open loop of, I wonder what the theme park was like that day. So I go, oh, that's interesting. Regrets aren't a bug, they're a feature. Regrets are a feature of life, right? They are a natural byproduct of us always being curious about what could have been. And given the fact that opportunity cost exists, they're always going to be there. So, okay, that's interesting. It's kind of liberating, right? Makes you feel less culpable for the suboptimal decision that you made. So, but what does it mean that you have to choose your regrets? What's that? What's the choose bit? Well, if you accept the fact that regrets are inevitable, that you're going to do things in your life, even if you choose the right thing, and you're going to consider in retrospect that you wonder what the other thing could have been. If you can't escape regrets, when it comes to making a decision between multiple choices, what you have to look at is not only what thing do I want, but which regret could I live with? If regrets are inescapable, you have to choose which one you want. Okay, so I have to choose which regret I want. So you're looking at a choice. You have things in front of you. Which of these two could I bear living with the regret of? And that makes decisions an awful lot easier, right? Because it switches us from a place of scarcity and fear about the future, and it helps to project us forward and think, okay, which of these could I not bear myself to live without? So for instance, with me moving to America last year, it was a big move. I was 33, 34 at the time. Not exactly the archetype I always felt like I should have had my shit together and my life sorted by the age of 34. So moving to a new country at this time is a bit, oh, really? But if I had the opportunity to do this podcast, to become one of the best in the world at what I do, to pursue my passion, my curiosity, and I didn't do it, I couldn't have lived with that regret.
But in that case, hindsight's a wonderful thing, right? Because you could have come here and it could have just fucking bombed.
It could have done.
And you would have then looked back on that decision as...
But at least I don't have the open loop anymore, right? I can live with the regret of selling an events business in the UK and trying to make it work in America, and then going back to the UK with my tail between my legs and going, I gave it a shot, it didn't work. I couldn't live with the regret of wondering, what if I'd had the conviction to follow my passions and go out to America and see if I can make it work?
When people are at that fork in the road, the problem is they look off into the two directions that are in front of them, is both directions are completely shrouded in darkness.
Correct.
So it's that we go down one of the routes, and then, based on the outcome in hindsight, we then attach regret or
you can post hoc rationalize pretty much anything. I do agree, but a few things here.
I've got one particular example in my mind where I was going to acquire a business, and we've been acquiring a few businesses recently at Flight Story. I was going to acquire a business, and I didn't in the end, and it turned out to be a really, really fantastic business. And so in hindsight, I'm going, I fucked up, that's a regret. And I think about it sometimes, I'm like, damn, should have bought that business. But it could have gone another way, and my perspective of the regret now would be entirely different. I'd be like, I'm amazing, I made a fantastic decision. But the answer and my regret didn't come until the game had been played out. And that's what I'm thinking about with the nature of regret. It's like,
well, it's difficult, right? Because you are correct. If you take a chance and that chance doesn't work out, then maybe you regret the other thing. But you can believe in advance, okay, even if I take the chance and it doesn't work out, at least I know that it didn't work out. For business decisions, ones that are a little bit more easily replaceable, as opposed to big life decisions, I remember when I was much younger, 21, I think, 22, and I needed to decide about whether or not I was going to go and do the season in Ibiza, or I was going to stay at home and earn and save money and stuff. I was 21, or 22, I think. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And I realized, even though I didn't have this model in my mind at the time, I was like, this might be the last time that I get the opportunity to do this. I'm going to go and do a master's next year, and then I'm going to go straight into running this nightlife business. I probably should do this. I probably should. And there was just something that compelled me to go and do it. And I went and spent, and the 7 weeks that I spent in Ibiza, although I don't remember all of it, my memories of it are quite fond. And I think, fuck yeah, I did the thing. And it just helps, I think, people to get past the fear of failure and of regret, especially in retrospect. Regret isn't necessarily a bad thing. The reason that it exists is because you cared about something. You cared about something enough to actually be bothered by it.
And you know what? When you were describing the liberating first point of the reason why regret exists, it made me think of this thing I read about jugglers, which I wrote about a little bit in my first book, where they believe that no juggler can juggle more than 14 balls at once. They think there's, just because of the laws of physics, the size of the human hand, it's impossible for a juggler to juggle more than 14 balls at once. And that speaks to the nature of limitation. There's only a certain amount of balls you can pick, and all the ones you don't pick. And it's kind of like the old analogy I used to sometimes talk about with, like, I love waffles, but I love a 6-pack. I'd love to have a 6-pack or an 8-pack or whatever. I can't have both. The story that I can only have one is what makes either special.
Yeah, correct.
Waffles, the 6-pack is only great because it's the story of the waffles I didn't have.
Correct.
And so I might regret having, but it's because of the scarcity and the nature of us having to make a finite set of choices in life. That's why 6-packs are having a 6-pack is so admirable. And it's the same, you can't have a world where things are special, where you don't have regret.
Precisely. So there's another rule that I absolutely love, which is you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything you want.
Yeah.
Right? You have to sacrifice most things in the medium term in order to be able to facilitate progress toward one thing, right? This is a really great insight from Oliver Berkman's 4,000 Weeks. Has he been on?
Yeah.
Great guy. Did you, when you were going through that, do you remember the choose in advance what you're going to suck at mindset?
I can't remember that.
Really good, really cool, very interesting mental model to use. So you have a plan for the next 6 months, right? Or the next year. By doing a thing, other things are going to have to be sacrificed. I want to grow my business. Okay, maybe your social life is going to take a little bit of a hit. Maybe your fitness is going to take a bit of a hit. Or I want to get into a relationship. Okay, well, you're probably not going to be able to get as much sleep. Maybe you're going to have to, your business is going to get less of your attention, whatever it might be. by focusing on one thing, you inevitably end up having to sacrifice focus on other things. Now, the problem that you and me and maybe a lot of the people listening to this that are type A go-getters that want to be able to have it all will feel is as soon as they start to feel something slip, they go, oh, fuck. Like I'm supposed to stay lean. I'm supposed to stay healthy and fit and whatever. And you go, by choosing in advance the things that you're going to suck at, the price that you're going to pay in order for success within whichever domain it is, it allows you to feel ease and acceptance when that particular domain does start to drop away. So for instance, this year, I'm writing a book, I'm going to do some live shows toward the end of the year, going to continue doing the podcast, and I'm doing some other bits and pieces as well. My fitness is going to have to take a hit. At the start of this year, I accepted the fact that I'm probably going to get a combination of smaller, fatter, and slower throughout this year. But that's fine. That's the price that I'm prepared to pay. And I made that deal with myself in advance. Okay, I'm conditioned. Fitness is going to take a little bit of a hit. I'll hold on to it as best I can. This isn't me being complacent about it. I'm going to let it slip. And it is such a powerful insight that you can have anything you want, but not everything you want. And I think that's liberating.
It's all the things you couldn't have. And like I said a second ago with a six pack, I often think about a six pack because I think, what makes that socially valuable? There's a social currency to it. Right. And all it is lines on your stomach. It's a story though.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is the thing about people that go to the gym. The physique that you build is attractive, feels good when you're naked and the other person's got their arms wrapped around you or whatever, right? Like that's a big part of it, don't get me wrong. But what it's also a part of is it shows the kind of person that you are to be able to achieve that kind of physique. Someone who is self-disciplined, who is self-motivated, who can do hard things, who can deal with pain, which is like kind of sexy. They're conscientious, they're reliable, they're disciplined.
Delay gratification.
All of these things, that is the story which is told by the way that you look, right? By your physique. And I really, really like that a six pack is a story of all of the waffles I didn't eat. Is great. And the same thing goes for whatever pursuit you choose, you know, the podcasting thing, right? And the differences that you've noticed in your ability to go from brain to mouth over the last 3 years or so since you've been doing the podcast, and mine as well. Definitely. That is a story of all of the hours that I didn't spend watching Netflix or scrolling TikTok or doing whatever. You know, it's the days and days and days of research and listening back to myself and time with my speech coach, working on diction, sitting in front of a microphone with a guest, doing all of these things. And that's the layers of pain to gain. You know, to look at one of the best communicators in the world or artists in the world or dancers or musicians or sports people or whatever it is a story of all of the things that they sacrifice in order to get themselves there. Okay, do you want that? Don't look at the things that they've got, look at the things that they've sacrificed, because that's the price that you have to pay to be in that position.